Welcome to IFA. I fix everything.
Today's project is to find the source and fix the cause of a loose lug nut. This began when I found a lug nut laying next to the wheel when I pulled into a parking spot. I was puzzled how it managed to stay on until the car came to a complete stop. I reinstalled the lug nut and torqued it to 105 foot-pounds. It didn't take long before the lug nut came loose again, but this time it took a couple friends with it and snapped off a couple studs. This video is the steps I took to prevent this from happening again. My first step was to purchase 5 studs and 20 lug nuts. The discoloration on the lug hole seats is metal smearing from loose lug nuts. The seats need to be resurfaced to prevent a recurrence of the problem. Alloy wheels for a 1986 Fiero GT are difficult to find and expensive. I did an experiment. I chucked a ball brush into a cordless drill and lightly burnished the seats. It returned them to a machined-like surface. Next, I switched to a cut brush and flipped the wheel over and began to burnish the inner mating surface. Brake dust contains toxic metals. Be sure to wear a respirator and perform this operation outside. To replace the broken wheel studs, I need to remove the brake rotor. The next step is to remove the brake caliper. If you need additional information on removing a brake caliper, I will include a link to a recent brake caliper maintenance video. Wheel studs can be replaced without removing the wheel hub. Excessive wheel vibration is one possible cause of a loose lug nut, so I decided to remove the hub and inspect the bearing. To get the leverage I need to overcome the 208 foot-pounds of torque and the 36-year marriage of the axle nut, I needed to add an extension to my breaker bar. The next step is vitally important. The hub must be pinned to prevent rotation of the axle and the subsequent damage to the transmission splines and gears. I inserted an air chisel punch through the outer hub, the inner hub, and into the axle mount hole. Then I clamped it in place with a pair of vice grips that keep it from backing out. This allowed me to have 2 hands free as I broke the axle nut loose. This is a close-up photo of the wheel hub inner bearing. I cleaned it thoroughly and inspected it for wear and vibration. Then I cleaned and inspected the axle shaft. I also cleaned the rust from the inner mating surface. A 5-pound hammer makes easy work of removing the press-fit serrated studs. A couple firm taps on the threaded tip will set the stud free. It's highly recommended that the stud and the nut are replaced as a set. I inserted all the studs and capped them with a lug nut prior to clamping it in a bench vise. I found that a 12mm boxed wrench makes a great handled spacer. I'm installing the lug nuts with the cone face up. This will allow the square face to seat against the wrench. Once again, I pinned the hub to prevent rotation as I tighten the lug nut. Apply a slight downward pressure on the wrench as you rotate the stud to engage the serrations in the hub. When the serrations are aligned, press firmly on the wrench to engage the stud. Turn the wrench and the stud will slowly begin to seat. The studs will fully seat when the lug nuts are torqued to specifications. I lubricated the axle and the hub prior to reassembly. The hub mount bolts are torqued to 62 foot-pounds. There is no sequence. The self-locking axle nut must be replaced each time it's removed. I locked the hub in place with an impact socket on the upper mount bolt trapped in the cutaway of the outer hub. Then I plugged a ratchet into the socket to use as a handle. I gripped the ratchet with my left hand and the torque wrench with my right hand and torqued the axle nut to 74 foot-pounds. Reinstall the brake rotor and caliper and torque the mount bolts to 30 to 45 foot-pounds. Before installing the wheel, remove the center cap. It's easiest if you tap it from the inside with a wooden hammer handle. Install the lug nuts and tighten in a star pattern 105 foot-pounds. It's best to tighten the lug nuts in 3 stages: 50% torque, 75% torque, and 100% torque. This will ensure the studs are seated properly and the wheel is properly mated. Now downjack the car and the axle can be torqued to specifications without damage to the transmission. After the wheel is reinstalled, take the vehicle for a test drive approximately 5 miles, return and re-torque any lug nuts that you had removed or changed. I torque checked the wheel with the replacement studs after 1 week. I found the torque had decreased slightly compared to the wheels that had not had the studs replaced. To replace a stud on the front wheel, the wheel hub must be removed. The first step is the same. You remove the brake caliper. Next, you remove the grease cap, the cotter pin, and the axle nut. The wheel hub and brake rotor are one piece. Slide it forward and remove the wheel bearings. From here, the process is the same. Drive out the stud with a hammer and replace it using the same technique. While the rotor is off, it's a good time to clean, inspect, and repack the wheel bearings. I will include a link to a video on cleaning and repacking wheel bearings. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a thing or two along the way. If you did, please like and share. Remember, subscribers are always welcome.